Housewives are like parasites, aren't they? Terry looks down on me, a full-time homemaker, at a family gathering. The relatives around us are giving Terry puzzled looks. But, oblivious to the atmosphere, Mary loudly laughs and retorts. Oh wow, that sounds almost like being jobless or without any direction. Indeed, I don't have a job. But that's only because Terry wanted it that way. I grit my teeth in frustration. Enjoying my discomfort, Terry says with a sneer, "Why don't you just quit being a full-time homemaker and get a job? Though I doubt someone incompetent like you could manage." Hey, Dad. It's mean to say the truth like that. Mary laughs heartily, finding his words hilariously absurd. I've had enough of this husband and daughter. Then I quit being a mother today. What? After this, the two of them will face a desperate situation. My name is Millie Smith. I'm a 45-year-old full-time homemaker. I currently live with my husband, Terry, and his daughter, Mary. I met Terry at a dinner party hosted by an acquaintance. At that time, I was a nurse with no romantic prospects. Nursing is mostly women, and while there are more men in medicine, the competition is fierce. Usually, the beautiful senior nurses were the ones dating doctors. Someone with average looks like me didn't stand a chance. Plus, dating within the hospital seemed awkward if things didn't work out. So, I decided to seek relationships outside. Through an acquaintance, I was introduced to men. But it never went well. My job involved night shifts and working weekends. Maybe that's why I couldn't match schedules with most men. Because of that, my dating experiences always ended after just 1 or 2 dates. But Terry was different. Terry and I had many dates together. A big reason for this was his job. He worked in sales at a multinational cosmetics company. His work mostly involved dealings with department stores, and he worked regardless of weekends. As a result, Terry often had weekdays off, making it easier to match our schedules. Dating Terry was fun. Our dates were short, often just meals or karaoke, but they were always filled with laughter. I thought I'd be so happy if I could marry Terry. Then one day, out of the blue, he proposed to me. I was so happy I cried. Terry was concerned to see me crying, but when I said yes, he was overjoyed. After meeting my parents, all that was left was to make it official. That's when Terry told me he was divorced with a 10-year-old daughter, Mary. His ex-wife had suddenly left him. And it seems that led to a divorce eventually. He asked me to quit nursing and to be a full-time homemaker. As Mary was still in elementary school and needed care at home. I'm really sorry, but I love you, Millie, and I want to be with you, he said with a look of regret. Few women would agree to marry upon learning about a stepchild so late. That's probably why Terry waited so long to tell me. But I loved Terry, so I agreed with a smile. I really loved my job as a nurse and thought it was my calling, but there was no helping it. A new life with the man I loved. I was looking forward to our married life together. For 10 years, I supported Terry and Mary as a full-time homemaker. To outsiders, our family might seem ideal. A family of 3 living in a house with a yard. As the wife, I'm a full-time homemaker. Terry works at a multinational corporation, and we seem to have a comfortable life financially. But reality was different. After we got married, Terry stopped seeing me as a woman. I felt more like a housekeeper to him. One morning, just after we'd married, Terry sat at the dining table, silent and seemingly sleepy. "Good morning. Breakfast's ready," I said, setting the meal on the table. It was when I was placing scrambled eggs, salad, and bacon on a plate with toast. Suddenly, Terry said, "Hold on," stopping me in my tracks. "What's wrong?" I asked, surprised by his sudden interjection. He looked at me with a twisted face, accusingly. "Why are you serving bacon for breakfast? What if Mary gains weight because of that?" I was taken aback by his remark. If it were a little kid, I'd think that concern is necessary. But Mary is already in the 4th grade. She can surely eat bacon no problem. So, I countered.
Eating bacon occasionally isn't a big deal. It's not like we're vegans.
But Terry wasn't convinced. Instead, he looked at me with disgust.
You're just being careless because Mary isn't your biological child, aren't you? Don't slack off, even if you are just a housewife.
He was raising his voice when Mary walked in, rubbing her sleepy eyes. Good morning. As soon as Terry saw her, his face lit up with a smile. Good morning, Mary. You look cute today. Where did his earlier rudeness towards me go? I watched his quick change of attitude with a cold eye. The smile he no longer showed me, he now lavished entirely on Mary. Terry gently stroked Mary's face and talked to her. Mary, of course, was smiling all along. Then, after lavishing attention on Mary, Terry glared at me and said in a low voice.
Anyway, for Mary's sake, make a chicken dish now. And make sure it's tender, good quality chicken. If you cut corners like this again, I won't forgive you.
Terry said that and then threw the bacon I had cooked into the trash can. I was terribly shaken by this sudden event.
What are you doing? That's such a waste.
I protested, but Terry just glared at me. He even started yelling at me loudly.
Don't talk back, just a housewife. You're eating off my money. Your only response should be yes.
Mary looked at me with cold eyes. I was scolded continuously until Terry was satisfied. I had no allies here. Yes, I replied, biting back my frustration. Terry's behavior had made Mary increasingly brazen. She took it for granted to order me around, and threw tantrums if I didn't comply. Telling Terry would only make matters worse, so I couldn't speak firmly to Mary. Now, 10 years have passed since we started living together, and Mary is already 20. She's a college student now, but dumps all her personal chores on me. Today, she came back from college saying, I'm home, and just left her coat and socks in the entrance, not bothering to pick them up. Hey, can you please put your laundry in the basket? I hurriedly picked up her scattered clothes, pleading desperately. Mary carelessly left her rain-soaked clothes lying around. If I don't pick them up and wash them quickly, they'll start to smell. And the floor will get damp, which is the worst. But Mary just said lazily,
Ugh, why don't you just do it? You're a housewife, that's your job, right? It's not like you have anything else to do, you're free anyway. Saying this, she went to change into her house clothes, leaving more clothes strewn about.
Mary then casually opened the fridge and started drinking a 1L carton of juice.
This is really troublesome,
I muttered to myself. Mary has no sense of femininity. Her actions are clumsy, and she leaves the empty carton as is, not even bothering to put it back in the fridge, even though there's still some left. As I stood there perplexed, Terry came home.
I'm home. What's all this fuss about?
He looked puzzled. Mary ran to Terry with a smile. And then she uttered a devilish remark. Dad, she's harassing me, she said, pointing at me.
What?
Terry glared at me. I, exasperated by Mary's attitude, explained.
I just asked Mary to at least put her clothes in the laundry basket after she scattered them around.
I thought that was a simple enough task, something even a grade schooler could do. I shouldn't be asking for anything too difficult. But the moment I said that, Terry let out a heavy sigh.
You should be able to handle that much. You're pointless as a housewife if you can't even manage the household properly,
he said, blaming me one-sidedly. To Terry, I seemed incompetent because I couldn't provide 100% support for Mary's lifestyle. That's not fair, I whispered in shock. Why should I have to coddle Mary, a college student, like a toddler? I certainly didn't agree with that. Mary hid behind Terry, smirking triumphantly at me.
Just do everything yourself. From now on, be proactive and get things done before I even have to say anything,
Terry instructed me. After that, both of them returned to their respective rooms.
I'm exhausted.
Alone, I felt all my energy drain away. Lately, Mary has been imitating Terry's attitude towards me, always looking down on me. This doesn't help in feeling any affection for her. I always think I should raise her as if she were my own daughter, but with her acting this way, it's tough. It's hard even with a blood connection. Terry, who I thought loved me, doesn't show any affection towards me either. I'm always treated like a housekeeper. Since we got married, he only smiles at Mary. Am I really okay with this? I whispered to myself while picking up the clothes Mary had strewn around. Amidst this, Terry suddenly told me. This Saturday, we have a family gathering at my parents' house. Make sure you prepare everything. I was bewildered by his announcement.
Saturday? That's the day after tomorrow. Why are you telling me this now?
Today is Thursday. I need to buy gifts for the in-laws and rearrange the plans I had for Saturday.
If you had told me at least a week in advance,
I said, but Terry just looked down on me with a smirk. You're just a housewife, what important things could you possibly have? Unlike me and Mary, you don't have a job. Just hurry up and get ready. With that, he left for work.
You've got to be kidding me.
I panicked at his words. On the day of the family gathering. Excuse us. I managed to prepare the gifts and visited Terry's parents' house with him and Mary.
Welcome. We've been waiting for you.
Terry's mother greeted us with a smile. Terry's father had passed away, and now his mother lived alone in their house. She's a kind woman, always telling me, "Do you need any help? I'm here if you ever need to talk." I would have liked to talk to Terry's mother about Terry and Mary's behavior, but I didn't want to burden her with unnecessary worries. So, I kept it to myself. By the time we arrived, other relatives of Terry's had already gathered. Terry's mother had ordered sushi for everyone, and the family gathering proceeded pleasantly. However, about an hour in, as everyone's drinks flowed, Terry, slightly tipsy, laughed and exclaimed,
My wife, a full-time homemaker, doesn't want to work. She really costs a fortune.
He slammed his beer mug on the table.
Terry, what's gotten into you all of a sudden?
Terry's mother asked him, puzzled. The relatives looked at Terry in surprise.
Terry, have you had too much to drink? Here, have some water.
I offered him a cup of water. But he knocked it away forcefully. And he declared, Housewives are like parasites. Terry was looking down on me, a full-time homemaker, at the family gathering with obvious contempt. His eyes clearly held contempt for me. The relatives around us were giving him puzzled looks. But Mary, seemingly oblivious to the atmosphere, laughed loudly and said, Oh wow, that sounds almost like being jobless or without any direction. Indeed, I don't work. But that's because Terry wanted it that way. And to properly care for Mary when she was in elementary school. He's been disregarding the past 10 years. Frustrated, I gritted my teeth. Terry, amused by my reaction, mockingly said, Why don't you just quit being a full-time homemaker and get a job? Though, I doubt someone incompetent like you could manage. This, coming from the man who told me to quit my job. It's unbelievable. I wanted to continue my nursing career. After making me quit my job, it's been 10 years and now he flips the script like this. And on top of that, he calls me incompetent. It's just too malicious. Apparently realizing Terry's remark was out of line, his mother said, Terry. Enough is enough. How can you say Millie is incompetent? She scolded him, and the relatives looked at Terry disapprovingly. But Terry seemed unfazed, laughing off, Why is Mom angry? I'm just being strict with her because she gets carried away if I'm too kind. Mary is no different. Oh, come on, Dad. It's mean to tell the truth like that. I do think she's incompetent, though. Mary burst into laughter, finding Terry's remark absurd. Terry's mother looked puzzled and upset at both Terry and Mary's behavior. That's terrible. She muttered quietly. And looked at me with concern. I softly told her, Terry and Mary are always like this. Please don't worry about it. Then, my mother-in-law, turning pale, came over to apologize. I had intended to smooth things over, but it seems I only added fuel to the fire. She glared at Terry and Mary. But the two of them didn't seem to realize it at all. Terry and Mary showed no signs of remorse and continued to laugh uproariously. I've had enough of this husband and daughter. I gave Terry and Mary an ultimatum.
Then I quit being a mother today.
What? The two looked at me, dumbfounded. This would lead them into a desperate situation. Mary, recovering first, burst out laughing.
Hilarious. If you stop being a mom, what will be left for you?
She laughed heartily. Terry, joining in Mary's mockery, looked down on me with a scornful laugh. What are you gonna do quitting being a mom now? Terry and Mary kept repeating terrible things to me. Their attitudes were unpleasant to watch. Terry's mother had been frowning and looking displeased since earlier. Her gaze towards her son and granddaughter was not one of affection. She probably despised their unreasonable behavior. The other relatives were also whispering and looking at Terry and Mary with discomfort. Nobody was laughing along with them. Oblivious to this, Terry and Mary continued to make condescending remarks about me.
You've been unemployed for 10 years. Society doesn't need you anymore. That's the price for playing around at home all this time.
Terry sneered at me.
Unlike me, who's young and has a future, you're just an old woman now.
So sorry for you. Mary laughed mockingly. I felt humiliated. Silently, I clenched my fist. I've endured more than 10 years. I hoped to become a real family because I loved Terry and believed Mary and I could eventually bond as mother and daughter. I had believed so. But the reality was entirely different. Since we got married, Terry's attitude changed completely. He always treated me like a housekeeper, never even calling me by my name. Mary was the same. She was always commanding me, thinking of me as a convenient person to take care of her needs, never seeing me as a mother. I tried to treat Mary as my own child, pouring my love into her care. I never missed a school event and woke up early to make her favorite dishes for field trip lunches. Despite all this, Mary never thanked me once. Her usual response was, "You're just a housewife, isn't that normal? You should try harder, actually." Terry has never thanked me for anything either.
Who do you think you owe for being able to eat? You should be kneeling and thanking me.
Terry always said that. In his eyes, those who work and earn money are superior, and it's just natural for me to do all the housework. He would often say, "You have it easy, staying at home all day." That's not a joke. From morning to night, I have so much to do: cleaning, laundry, cooking. Even when Terry and Mary were leisurely watching TV, I was always busy with household chores. To them, all my efforts were taken for granted. I was just a convenient existence for them. I don't want to live with these two anymore. It's time to move on. Amidst this bizarre atmosphere, I suddenly stood up. Terry and Mary were surprised to see me get up.
What's this all of a sudden? You are startling me.
Terry protested in a high-pitched voice. With a blank expression, I made my declaration right there.
Then I'm quitting being a mother, so from now on, I'm a stranger to Terry and Mary. Goodbye.
I swiftly picked up my bag and headed out of my in-laws' house. The in-laws and relatives seemed confused, but no one tried to stop me. Terry started to panic.
Wait! Are you going home?
Yes, that's right.
It's rude to leave a dinner party early, isn't it? And yet you're trying to go home first.
Mary looked at me in disbelief. What are these two even talking about?
Huh? There's no way I'm going back to the house where I lived with you. I'm going to my parents' house.
I replied, half in disbelief. I no longer want to live with these two. Terry then shouted in disbelief.
What are you thinking? Going to your parents' house all of a sudden? What about the housework? Aren't you a full-time homemaker?
Mary glared at me.
Exactly. That's so unreasonable. What about my meals and taking care of me? You have to do it properly, or I'll be in trouble.
Mary demanded, as if attacking me. Even now, they're only thinking of themselves. It's just unbelievable. I sighed lightly and replied,
Why don't you take care of it yourselves? Anyway, I'm parasites, I'm leaving, bye-bye.
I waved my hand and left the place. Terry and Mary were shouting something behind me, but I ignored them. I won't be manipulated by them anymore. Let them regret it for the rest of their lives. Then, I quickly went back to the house we lived in and gathered only my valuables. I had said I wouldn't return, but I still had my clothes there. I only went back to pick up the essentials. I had to hurry before Terry and Mary returned. My belongings were few, just some clothes, so I quickly packed them into a duffel bag. Terry hardly ever spent money on me, so my personal items were limited. I left the house key in the mailbox. I won't be needing it anymore. Meanwhile, I kept receiving calls and numerous messages from Terry like, "You'll regret it when you come back," and "Come back to my parents' house right now." As if I would return to my in-laws' place. I had no intention of going back home either. After all, there was nothing to lose from divorcing Terry. I went straight to my parents' house. I had informed them beforehand, so my mother warmly welcomed me. My father also looked concerned. My real family is just these two people. I almost cried at my parents' kindness. So, I started my life at my parents' home. Life there was more comfortable than I thought. There were no Terry and Mary to command me around. No one criticized my cooking, and I didn't have to pick up after their messes. I could use my free time for job hunting and focusing on myself. I applied to several promising job openings. Being single now, I could even do night shifts. Shortly after, I received an interview invitation. I had been continuously ignoring calls and messages from Terry and Mary. By now, their house must be in chaos. And that's probably why they're contacting me. I won't help them now, not after everything. I firmly decided this and continued to ignore the incoming calls that kept coming. After 3 weeks, with my background as a nurse, I managed to secure a new job. It's a full-time position as a regular employee. There's some anxiety about coping with a 10-year gap. But I have no choice but to push through. I bolstered myself for the challenge. The night before my first day at the new job, my mother came to my room with a confused look. "What's wrong?" I asked. She hesitantly said, "Terry and Mary have come over. I can't just send them away, what should I do?" She was clearly troubled. I hadn't divorced Terry yet, so she was unsure how to deal with my legal husband. My father, concerned for me, offered, should I go and give them a piece of my mind? I didn't want to burden my parents any further. So I reluctantly answered, "I'll go." It was time to sever ties with Terry and Mary. I headed to the front door. Opening it, I found Terry and Mary outside the gate. "What do you want now?" I asked coldly. I had no intention of letting them into my parents' house. Even when Terry said, "Let us in, it's cold out here," I didn't open the gate. Instead, I added, "If you have something to say, say it here. Make it quick, please." Terry seemed a bit surprised by my non-compliant attitude. Then, he sighed heavily. "How long do you plan to take it easy at your parents' house? We're in a mess back home." Terry started with insults as soon as he opened his mouth. He was clearly angry. He must think it's all my fault, not reflecting on his behavior. Mary also glared at me. "Yeah. It's all your fault. The house is a mess, and we have no clean clothes to wear. Hurry up and come back to take care of it." They told me it had been 3 weeks since I left. Terry and Mary apparently haven't been taking care of the house at all. Mary just leaves her clothes scattered everywhere. And hasn't even used the washing machine. Terry doesn't reprimand her. Instead, he seems to be contributing to the mess. As a result, the living room is filled with dirty clothes.
Unbelievable. 2 adults and they let the house get into such a state.
I muttered in disbelief. However, Terry reacted to my murmurs. Laundry is your job, so I'm leaving it for you. Be grateful and wash it, will you? Exactly. Hurry up and do it. That's all you're good for, isn't it? Mary added, laughing. I was appalled and speechless. How long do these two think they can order me around? But if I keep quiet, it's playing right into their hands. I won't allow that. I calmly countered. Why would I do that? I'm divorcing Terry. A lawyer will contact you soon, so please make sure you handle the procedures properly. I spoke calmly. I determined not to be swayed by Terry and Mary anymore. But Terry seemed unsatisfied. How can you divorce without any income? Someone incompetent like you will be in trouble very soon, he said, laughing loudly. Mary, still seemingly confident, told me. Being a real jobless person is bad, you know? Apologize to Dad quickly and come back home. We'll put you to work again. I didn't want to be at their mercy anymore. Besides, I have a job now. I smiled and rejected them. I've already secured a new job, so don't worry about me. Maybe you should worry about living in a garbage house? What? You already got a job? That's too quick. Terry sounded frustrated. Mary felt the same. I thought you'd be crying by now without a job. But look at you, acting all high and mighty. Mary clicked her tongue in frustration. Expecting my misery, they really are the worst kind of father and child. As I was thinking this, Mary, as if she had an idea, said, You're my mother, right? So you can't just quit being a mother so easily. I'm still a student. She made a face as if she were the victim. But it's too late for that. Besides, Mary must know the truth. I smiled at Mary and spoke. You know, don't you, Mary? That we're not related by blood. Once I divorce Terry, we'll no longer be family. Ah! Mary turned pale. As if she just realized it. Her mind seems quite naive. I'm not Mary's real mother. Her biological mother is someone else. That's why, after the divorce from Terry, Mary and I will be strangers. If Mary had shown me some affection, maybe I would have felt some motherly love for her. But to Mary, I was just a convenient housekeeper until the end. She always commanded me around, acting as if it was only natural for me to serve her. I don't want to be a mother in such a situation. Mary looked frustrated, but she couldn't think of any way out. She glared at me in silence. Terry seemed to realize my determination. And now that I had found a new job, there was no way to avoid the divorce. He looked at me resentfully. With nothing left to say, I bid them my final farewell. Goodbye. We'll never meet again. Terry and Mary's faces contorted. They had planned to bring me back to do the housework, but their plan had failed. And with the divorce, they would have to accept that I would never do the housework for them again. They would have to return to their unkempt house alone. They must be filled with a sense of despair. Ignoring them, I closed the front door of my parents' house. Eventually, Terry and I got divorced. He was quite resistant at first, only saying, "We won't divorce. Everything will be back to normal once Millie returns home. Going back to being a housekeeper is out of the question." Through my lawyer, I conveyed that reconstruction was impossible and that if Terry continued to refuse the divorce, it would lead to a legal battle. Terry would surely be troubled by the idea of going to court. Eventually, he signed the divorce papers. As for what happened afterward, Terry quit his job. It turns out he is completely incapable of handling household chores. Not even doing laundry. He ended up wearing dirty clothes repeatedly. Naturally, this caused a stench at his workplace, and he was repeatedly warned by his superiors. Terry, having an oddly high pride, strongly resisted these warnings. And eventually resigned. However, even after quitting, he couldn't find a new job. Going to interviews without being able to take care of himself and smelling bad certainly didn't help. Mary could have done the laundry, even if Terry found it difficult. Both had become accustomed to doing nothing. There are coin laundries and housekeepers available, but they chose not to utilize these services. It's their responsibility. There's still a mortgage on the house and Mary's college fees to consider. If things continue like this, they're headed for a downfall. Once, Mary called me. I was reluctant to answer, but I did anyway. Yes? Mary immediately started talking.
Finally, you answered. The house is a mess, full of dirty, smelly clothes. Plus, Dad has no income since he quit his job.
I was disgusted that she was still trying to rely on someone else in this situation.
I'm a stranger to you now. Maybe ask your grandmother?
I suggested, sighing. But Mary, almost in tears, said,
Grandma has been distant since you left, and other relatives don't answer our calls. Please, help us.
My mother-in-law is a sensible person and was a homemaker herself. Moreover, many among our relatives are also homemakers. It's no surprise they distanced themselves from people who belittled homemakers. It's only natural to distance oneself from people who belittle homemakers. Don't call me again. Goodbye, I said and hung up the phone. I immediately blocked Mary's number. From now on, Terry and Mary will likely face increasing hardship. Without income, they won't be able to afford Mary's college fees. She'll probably have to drop out soon. But that's their fault for not doing any household work. Unaware of this, Terry and Mary will likely continue to struggle for the rest of their lives. It's been 3 years since then. My life has changed significantly. I've remarried. 6 months ago, I married a colleague from the same hospital. I never thought workplace romance was possible, but he was very proactive in his approach. And eventually, I gave in. He works as a nurse in a different ward. He is a dedicated and serious person. He had been single all his life and can do all the household chores. He even cooks better than I do, which is surprising. He always treats me as an individual. Asking things like, Millie, how about fish for dinner tonight, while checking the fridge. Terry never did anything and always complained about the food I cooked. He only saw me as a housekeeper. So, my husband's kindness means a lot to me. Nursing is tough, but we support each other and manage somehow. There might be many challenges ahead. But I believe we can overcome them together. Keep going. I'm determined. My name is Nancy. I've been married for 7 years, but I've spent half of that time alone. The reason is that my husband Sam has been on a long-term business assignment. He's now in his 3rd year at this particular assignment. I feel it's about time he returned to the main office, but he mentioned that his period away might get extended. I work too, so I understand the need for his assignment. However, I do have some doubts about it. In the 1st year, he used to come home almost every month, but now he doesn't because the company won't cover his travel expenses. Even though he's allowed to cover expenses twice a year, he doesn't because he's too busy with work. When I offer to visit him, he says it would be inconvenient because he's so busy. It's strange, why would he refuse when his wife wants to visit? Then, one day, Sam suddenly came home.
It's a surprise! I wish you had told me you were coming.
I was overjoyed and jumped into his arms. But what he said next was shocking.
I'm sorry, my mistress is pregnant. I want a divorce. What? I don't understand.
I want a divorce.
Why?
My mistress is pregnant.
Wait a minute, so you're admitting you cheated? And that's okay?
Yes, that's right. I felt dizzy hearing him calmly confirm it. My mind went blank, and it took me a while to grasp that I had been betrayed. I was so upset I couldn't even stand, and I just sat down right there. But Sam just looked down at me without offering a hand to help me up.
So, you're saying I've been betrayed by you?
I didn't mean for it to happen. He looked pained as he handed me a divorce paper, with his name already on it. Oh, he's serious. And in the consent section, there was the name of a woman I didn't recognize.
Who is this?
My mistress. A divorce with the mistress consenting? That's ridiculous. Can a divorce paper even be like this? All I can think of are the happy times I've had with Sam. Despite those moments, why did he turn to someone else?
Why?
I was lonely. I hated being away on assignment. I wish you could have come with me.
But we decided this together, didn't we?
Yes, we did. That's why it's all my fault.
That's not fair, saying it's all your fault and I'm sorry. You can't just settle everything like that.
No matter what you say, I am at fault. I'm sorry.
What was I to you then?
My wife.
Yes, your wife. What does that mean to you? What was I as your wife?
I'm sorry. His only reply was I'm sorry, and I felt an urge to strike him. But hitting him wouldn't bring his feelings back. Instead, I'd just end up being labeled a hopeless woman in his eyes.
Didn't you enjoy being married to me?
It was fun, but I couldn't overcome the loneliness.
I was lonely too, but I never cheated.
I'm just weak. That's just cowardly. Planning to shoulder everything and act defiant? If you say that, I end up with nothing to say. So, I want a divorce.
How old is she?
34.
She's only a year younger than me.
I was lonely.
I've heard that already.
I'm sorry. It's my fault. He keeps repeating the same words. Why can't he say anything else? It's like there's nothing left inside him.
Is that why?
What do you mean?
So, you didn't come home because you wanted to spend time with her, even though you had travel expenses covered twice a year?
Yeah, that's right.
And when I said I'd visit, you said you were busy because you wanted to be with her?
That's right. I wanted to cherish the time with her.
How can you say that so brazenly? What kind of person are you?
A dry laugh welled up in me. I'm sorry, I'm the one at fault. I won't ask for forgiveness, but I want you to understand. She needs me.
Is the time you spend with her more important than our first trip together, our first wedding anniversary, and all the time we spent together?
Yeah. Something inside me snapped. If only he had denied it. But with just one yeah, he negated everything.
So, she's that important to you because you were lonely?
Yeah. She filled the loneliness I felt.
Oh, that's great. Since I have a job, I couldn't fill your loneliness.
Yeah, exactly. You have your job, so I couldn't ask you to come with me. That's why it's my fault. I didn't make it clear, my bad.
I see. So, I want a divorce. Please.
Were you enduring that much loneliness?
Yeah.
So, you thought only you were suffering?
Huh? Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why your feelings shifted to another woman, right?
My emotions were swirling with anger. Despite feeling so sad and lonely, the other side of me emerged.
I do feel sorry, but I still want a divorce.
I looked up at my husband Sam directly and said, Nope. I won't divorce you.
Why not? Just sign this, and you'll be free too?
Only you want to be free, right?
I'm fine as it is. You probably thought, given my personality, I'd understand if you said it's all your fault, and I'd agree divorce to make it easier for you, right? But unfortunately, this time it won't work that way. Why not? You're a kind woman, aren't you?
Yes, I have been super kind.
But I'm not always going to be, especially not this time.
Absolutely no divorce.
Why not?
An affair will end eventually. I won't throw away 7 years just for that.
I know you love me. But I don't feel the same way.
Do I really love him? Is that why I don't want a divorce? I don't think that's it. I was free when he wasn't around. Even when he was on assignment, I never felt lonely. Life with our young child was fulfilling.
She's pregnant with your child?
Seems so.
But I have a child here too.
Who's more important to you?
Her, of course.
Huh?
The child here is a girl. But over there, a boy is being born. A boy can take care of me in my old age.
Children are not tools to be used for your care.
I know, but that's idealistic. No matter what, we all age. A daughter won't be of use.
What is he saying?
You took me away from my parents too. That's why. That's why a daughter won't do it.
Seriously?
I always thought I didn't need a daughter. They just cost money. That's why I need a son. She's carrying the son I want.
You're the worst.
Yeah, I am. That's why let's get a divorce. I have to take responsibility as a man.
Responsibility. What about your responsibility to me?
You can live on your own.
What's that supposed to mean?
She can't live by herself.
I pushed the divorce papers back at him with a smile.
Are you really not going to divorce?
Yeah, divorce isn't something you just decide on the spot. I can't just say, okay, let's divorce upon hearing about an affair. Plus, there's a child, right? You're thinking too simply.
I'm serious.
Yeah. I don't know how seriously you thought about this, but I'm not getting a divorce.
I see, got it. I'll contact you again after a while. Think about it.
After saying this, my husband Sam left the divorce papers and walked out of the house. Left alone, I stared intently at the papers.
What a joke. As if I'm going to let it end with just I'm at fault. I'll make him realize.
The next day, I went straight to a private investigator and asked them to look into Sam's mistress. I thought it was crucial to know your enemy if you want to teach them a lesson. The investigation was completed in about 2 weeks. Smirking at the results, I sent Sam a message. Hey, how's it going? How are things with your secret wife?
Stop talking weird.
Oh right, she's your open wife, isn't she?
What do you want to say?
I was just wondering if the child in her belly is really yours.
What? Of course, it's my child. Are you making up silly fantasies because you're jealous?
I hope it's just my imagination. Is your girlfriend really faithful to only you?
Of course. You think she's seeing other men?
Bingo.
No way.
Confident in his response, I sent him a photo. This is your mistress, right?
Did you investigate?
Of course, I wanted to know the face of the person who's agreeing to the divorce. It's not surprising.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to divorce you and marry her officially.
She seems nice. I was surprised when I looked into her.
Right. I knew you'd say that.
Yes, a real catch. Quite the social climber.
What do you mean?
I sent him a second photo. It showed the mistress exiting a motel with a man who wasn't Sam.
What's this?
Surprised? That man isn't you.
Can you believe such a photo?
Oh, how about this one? The third photo was with another man. Also leaving a motel, closely snuggling up. She's amazing. She's been dating about 3 other men. She's in and out of motels daily, even with 2 or 3 men in a day. She should just make a career out of it. She's quite resilient.
No, it's a lie, a fake. She wouldn't do this.
Hard to believe, isn't it? I felt the same when I heard about your affair.
We're different.
Strange boast. By the way, I heard your company doesn't tolerate infidelity.
That's right. But if we're divorced, it's not infidelity.
We're not divorced yet.
Infidelity can lead to dismissal. You're not thinking of doing something silly, are you?
Silly? I wouldn't think of such a thing.
If you don't divorce me, and you expose my affair, it'll hurt you too.
Of course, I know. As long as we're married, I wouldn't do such a thing.
Right, you're a smart woman. You wouldn't do something foolish.
Yes, I am. But it depends on you.
Huh? Really your child? What? Annoying. Of course, it's my child. Did you know DNA tests can be done during pregnancy? Where's the need for that? Even after seeing those photos, you're sure it's your child? Of course. Photos can be faked. I trust her. Okay. You might want to check, but if you're sure, fine. After ending the chat, I was amazed he still insisted it was his child. I decided then to make him truly face the consequences. A few days later, Sam called in a panic. Hey! I've been fired from my job. Oh, why? They found out about my affair. Really? How come? Don't tell me, you. What? You didn't snitch on the company, did you? Why would I do that? What's in it for me? But if it wasn't for that... Sam's fears were correct. After all, I was the one who reported him. If I'm going to drag him through hell, it has to be thorough. So, I took his job away from him. Look, don't you think it's obvious? A married man living with another woman. Plus, the company was even paying for homecoming travel expenses. Anyone would think it's infidelity. Maybe they questioned your ethics? Is that what this is about? You thought you wouldn't get caught? I thought I was managing it well. Silly. Bad deeds always get exposed. What am I supposed to do now? With a child on the way and everything. Tough, isn't it? You think the child is yours, right? Of course, it's my child. How many times do you need me to say it? Then you just have to do your best, right? Of course, you still need to provide living expenses for me too. We're not divorced yet. You have a job. That's a different matter. Since we're not divorced, it's important. I had to say it twice. What am I supposed to do? I don't know. But if it's really that hard, I guess I could give you a gift. A gift? Yeah. A gift that'll make you cry with joy. What is it? I'll divorce you. What? Really? Then I don't have to send you living expenses, right? Right, you won't need to pay living expenses. But I'll take a fair amount of child support. Yeah, I guess that can't be helped. And I'm keeping the house. So, even if you come back, you won't have a place to live. That's fine. I don't plan to come back anyway. She's from here, so we'll probably live here from now on. Great, that works for me. I'll send you the bill for child support, and make sure you pay it. All right, I got it. Once you pay, I'll file the divorce papers. All right. But I'm surprised you decided this. You really were the woman I loved. Sam was thrilled. Later, when I sent the bill for child support, Sam borrowed from consumer loan companies to pay it. Hey, Nancy! That was a bit steep. But I paid for it. It's only fair. You did that much. But you only paid the partial amount, right? Of course, I paid it all. I said I wanted the child support in one lump sum. What? That's impossible. Why? You said you'd pay. If you don't, I won't divorce you. Would you rather pay $2,000 every month forever? Okay. I'll do it if you divorce me. Then, please do. So, Sam borrowed from several loan companies to pay me. Of course, he kept it a secret from her. Now, the divorce is finalized. And, exulting in the prospect of marrying her, my ex-husband Sam was overjoyed. And, as a final revenge, I mailed Sam the documents and photos from the private investigator. Hey, what's this? Hello, Sam. How's life post-divorce? What's this about? What do you mean? You sent me documents from the private investigator. Oh, the stuff I had researched. I thought I'd send it to you since I don't need it anymore. This says she's in debt for $200,000. Yeah, she's quite the debtor. And she has 3 kids? Yes, 3 girls. It's going to be lively. Though, apparently, she doesn't know who the father of any of them is. I don't need daughters. That's too bad. They're the children of the woman you love. So, is this true? She's currently being taken care of by her mom, but she'll take all of them once we're married?
Seems like it. She's their mother, after all.
I've already registered for marriage.
Congratulations. Happy wedding. That's just perfect.
It's not perfect.
Why not?
I didn't know she had such a debt. I'm already in debt for $264,000 for your child support, and now I have to deal with her debt and 3 kids.
You're going to be a father of 4. No time for affairs now.
I can't handle 4 kids with all this debt. What should I do?
Debt goes away if you steadily pay it off. Might take decades. As for the kids, they're your beloved's children. You have to accept them.
If I knew it would be this hard, I wouldn't have gotten married. I should have stayed married to you and continued our affair.
I couldn't believe he could say such a thing so casually. This man is truly despicable. To think he could say he should have continued an affair while married. Oh, by the way, her mother is sick, right?
What? With what?
Seems like it's quite serious. She's been looking after the kids, after all. That must have been tough. She's been working hard for her grandkids, so you better take good care of her. She seems to be short on money too.
What? No way.
It's all in the report.
Ugh, yeah, it's true. Does this mean I'll eventually have to take care of her too?
Looks like it. Oh boy, what a handful. Better have a good talk.
How can I bring that up now? We just got married, this will totally ruin our newlywed bliss.
Right. And you're unemployed now.
Damn it.
Sam, now jobless, tried to find work but could only get part-time gigs. The place he moved to was quite rural. Not many job opportunities for a 40-year-old like him. Still, wanting to enjoy his newlywed life, he kept all these issues under wraps until, what is this? He exploded upon seeing his newborn child.
Hey! Why are you yelling? This is a hospital.
You!
This child clearly isn't mine. It's just different genes. You've been calling yourself this child's dad all this time. That's good enough. Different genes mean it's another man's child. Don't fuss about it. It's just that one of the guys I played with happened to be black.
Played with?
You mean you were seeing a black guy while with me?
Yes, just like you were doing. You were seeing me while having a wife.
I was?
Of course. Just like you, I can't be blamed.
But a black guy?
Can't help it. I was seeing 5 guys. No way to know which one it would be.
That's... What kind of woman are you?
What kind? I just love my freedom.
Freedom? You call this freedom?
It's no big deal. I didn't expect you to make such a fuss over something so small.
Small, you say?
That's when Sam let it all out.
Is it true you're in debt for $200,000?
Yes, it is.
What's all that money for?
Not all men are rich. Plus, I wanted to look good when going out.
So, it's all just to show off?
Yes, obviously. You approached me seeing how I look. Who would be interested in a poorly dressed woman?
Ugh.
Realizing she was right, Sam was at a loss for words. Then, he brought up the children, and just then, her mother arrived with the kids. Maria, congratulations on the birth.
Oh, Mom.
Sam, congratulations. Since we're officially married and you've had the baby, I thought I'd bring these kids back. I've been feeling worse lately, and might have to be hospitalized soon.
That bad?
Yes. But I don't have much money. So, Sam, I'm counting on you.
Counting on me for what?
I'll take care of the kids, and in return, you'll have to take care of my mother. I thought her old age was far off, but she's frail. We might need to gather money for surgery.
No way! How can I handle all these kids and your mother too?
She's my mom, you have to take care of her. I won't forgive you if you neglect her.
This is crazy! It's like a scam! $200,000 in debt and 3 secret children? And now a black baby? What kind of woman are you? And a frail mother-in-law too?
I think it was then. At the perfect moment, I messaged her. Nice to meet you. I'm Sam's ex-wife, Nancy. Just to let you know, your husband has a debt of $264,000. He's been fired and is working part-time now. Tough life, right? Bye. What's this?
Huh? Who's it from?
Your ex-wife.
Hey, what's this $264,000 debt? You called me a scammer, what's this about? You have more debt than me, and I didn't even know?
Sam got yelled at by her, but he yelled back, turning the hospital room into a battlefield. As for me, I sent the message and looked at the photo in front of me. It was a photo of her leaving a hotel with a black man. I kept this one to myself, not sending it to Sam. Why? Because I wanted him to see the child with his own eyes. After that, Sam's debt, including his current wife's share, ballooned to $464,000. Weighed down by the debt, Sam seemed to be in deep despair. Working as a couple might have been a solution, but it wasn't that simple. They had a total of 4 young children. Maria, the wife, apparently couldn't afford to play around anymore and was looking after the children as a mother should. So, even when Sam asked her to work, she would only say, "How can I work when the kids are this young? Don't you think it's pitiful for the kids? I won't work until they grow up." Maria seemed to be quite a strong woman. Moreover, they had to live with her frail mother, further straining their finances. Yet, even from her mother, they couldn't get living expenses, let alone food money. Desperate, Sam contacted me with a feeble voice, begging for help. Of course, I just laughed it off as a joke, but the reality was that they were crammed into a tiny apartment, a family of 7. Sam, harried by his wife to work, juggled multiple part-time jobs and could hardly get any sleep at home, almost like he was back on a business trip. He would contact me occasionally, worn out, repeating how much he hated it. As for me, I had grown accustomed to life without a husband and didn't have a single problem. The large sum of money I received ensured my peace of mind. Now, it's just my child and me, spending our days in tranquility.
Get out, I'm going to live with her.
I was stunned by Sean's sudden loud declaration. Behind Sean, I saw Kathy smirking. Probably, Kathy had persuaded Sean to take this action. Regaining my composure, I thought for a moment and responded. I was glad I had been suspicious and investigated. I had already started moving towards divorce, so Sean choosing Kathy didn't matter to me. But their naivety was astounding. Telling me to leave, how dare they? Fortunately, I have a strong ally. I'm going to teach these 2 a lesson about reality. My name is Margot McLean, a 30-year-old office worker. I met my husband, Sean, at the same company we worked at. Sean, from a different department, worked in sales while I was in planning. We first met at the company-wide welcome party for new employees. We happened to sit next to each other and hit it off, exchanging contacts then and there. A few months later, he asked me to go out, but I was new and too busy learning my job to think about dating. Sean said, "I'll wait until you are ready." 2 years had passed, and by then, I had become quite proficient at my job. On my 24th birthday, when we went out for dinner together, we decided to have a relationship. Sean was very handsome, and dating him made me the envy of many. After 3 years of dating, he proposed, and we got married. I lived alone in a house, and Sean moved in with me. I have a close sister. Her name is Mina Turner, a designer currently working overseas. I told Mina about living with Sean. Mina, who couldn't come to our wedding, said, "Then I'll send a gift to your home," and she gave me clothes she designed. Since living with Sean, Mina has returned home twice, but hasn't met Sean due to scheduling conflicts. She kept saying that I'll definitely meet him someday. We agreed that I would become a homemaker once we had children, but for now, we were both working hard. Recently, however, Sean's behavior changed. He used to always refuse business trips, but now he went on them frequently and started coming home late from drinking. Sometimes he wouldn't come home at all after a night out. When I asked where he stayed, he would only say at a friend's. Thinking about why he started acting this way, I remembered hearing rumors. Rumors were about a woman named Kathy, who started working. Kathy was very cute and seemed like the kind of woman men would want to protect. Perhaps because of this, she wasn't well liked by the female employees. Kathy was known for her numerous rumors involving men. She was close to Sean, and rumors were that Kathy was targeting him. At the time, I thought these were baseless rumors and ignored them. But now that I think about it, Sean started coming home late around the time those rumors began. Feeling uneasy, I was in the lounge when Kathy walked in. It felt awkward, so I decided to leave and then noticed the scent of her perfume. I remembered that Sean had recently bought a similar perfume. Whether it was a coincidence or because of the rumors, I started feeling sick. As I passed by Kathy on my way to the restroom, she laughed at me. That moment turned my suspicions into convictions, but I lacked proof. I decided to gather evidence of Sean's infidelity. The day before Sean said he was going on a business trip, I asked a reliable supervisor at work if Sean was really going. It turned out Sean had taken 3 days off. My supervisor asked, "Isn't Sean's mom unwell? Aren't you taking any time off?" To which I responded with a denial. I hadn't heard about my mother-in-law being sick, and she seemed fine when I last called. After discussing my suspicion that Sean might be cheating with my supervisor, I was given the same days off as Sean. I used those 3 days to follow Sean. When I got home early, Sean asked, "What happened to your car?" I lied that it was having issues, so I borrowed a replacement, and he believed me without question. In reality, anticipating Sean would use the car, I had rented one the day before and left my car at my parents' house. The next day, as expected, Sean left in the car, and I discreetly followed him. He headed to an apartment. I waited in a position where I could see the entrance. Of course, I was ready to take evidence photos with my phone. Sean either had a key or the door was unlocked, as he entered by himself. An hour later, the door opened again, and I saw Sean and Kathy come out. Sean had gone to Kathy's apartment. I was prepared, but seeing the happy couple in front of me, I couldn't hold back my tears. Then they got into the car and drove off, so I followed them. They headed to a jewelry shop. I parked a little far in a parking lot and entered the shop. I had disguised myself just in case, which allowed me to follow them. They were looking at rings, and from eavesdropping, it seemed they were selecting an engagement ring. Sean, already married, what was he thinking? I was irritated. They chose an expensive-looking diamond ring. Afterward, they went to a fancy French restaurant. I couldn't enter as I didn't have a reservation, but managed to capture them arm in arm entering the restaurant. I waited for them to come out and continued following. They returned to Kathy's apartment and didn't come out until morning, so I stayed at a nearby hotel. The next morning, I was on standby early but only saw them leave the house once. They came out together, holding hands, and went to the nearby store, then quickly returned home. On the third day, they hardly left the house except for brief trips to the store, but I managed to take quite a few photos. Still feeling it wasn't enough, I hired a detective agency. A few weeks later, the results from the agency arrived, and all that was left was to bring up the divorce. As I was wondering how to bring up the topic, Sean returned home from his so-called business trip, which was actually an affair. I told him as soon as he got back, "We need to talk later. I just got home, you know? I can't talk now. I was about to go to sleep." "What about dinner and a shower?" "I have already done them. You know, talking to you just irritates me. Can you only talk to me when I'm in a good mood?" "Margot, you've really aged. You don't even bother with makeup at home, it's like you've given up being a woman." Laughing, Sean returned to his bedroom. I was irritated. Everyone ages, and it's okay to be without makeup at home. Besides, how was I supposed to know when he was in a good mood? For now, I decided to drop the divorce talk, take a shower, and go to bed. The next day, after finishing work on time, I hoped I could finally have the conversation. To my surprise, Sean came home much earlier than usual. The heavy footsteps in the hallway and the unusual air about him made me uneasy. The next moment, he burst into the living room.
"I'm going to live with her, so get out."
I was stunned by Sean's sudden loud declaration. Behind Sean, I saw Kathy smirking mischievously. Probably, Kathy had convinced Sean to act this way. Trying to stay calm, I asked Sean for a reason.
"Why? What happened all of a sudden?"
"Kathy, she only has 6 months to live.
"I want to spend as much time as possible with her, to create memories. She said she always wanted to live in a house like this."
"So, Margot, you need to leave." Kathy stuck out her tongue from behind Sean. I was infuriated by her actions, but then got an idea for a satisfying revenge. Telling them to wait, I went to the bedroom to get something I had prepared. When I returned to the living room, they looked puzzled. I said, "Fine, thinking this isn't my house anyway."
"Great, Sean." "Sorry, Margot, for taking your husband."
It's okay. "So, Sean, can you sign this right away?" I said, handing him the divorce papers, and Sean looked a bit bewildered. However, Kathy urged him, saying hurry up and sign it, and Sean reluctantly signed the divorce papers. After confirming the signature, I showed them the compensation agreement prepared by my lawyer. They were shocked. Sean asked, "Why did you prepare this?" But I was ready for divorce anyway, so it was only natural. I demanded $60,000 from Sean. Sean agreed to the amount. Kathy was clearly unhappy.
"I only have 6 months to live, and you're demanding compensation from a poor girl like me? You're a monster."
"Poor girl? Okay, let's do this.
If you're still alive after 6 months, then I'll demand the compensation then, and it'll be $1 million. How about that?"
I made a bold proposal to Kathy. Later on, I requested the lawyer to proceed with our divorce. I was profoundly grateful that I had recorded the conversation about the divorce on my cell phone for evidence. After all, evidence is crucial. Since I'm off tomorrow, I'll pack up and leave the day after tomorrow. Oh, and don't worry, I'll file the divorce papers right after this. So, this meeting is over now. Hurry up and leave, I said, concluding the discussion. Sean and Kathy left hand in hand, looking cozy together. I started packing as soon as I got home and called my sister Mina. She found my strategy amusing and said, "That sounds interesting." I always knew she was a great sister. Mina was planning to return from abroad in 6 months, so we decided to carry out the revenge then. The next day at work, everyone was talking about us. The rumor was that Kathy had finally snatched a married man. Unable to bear their sympathetic glances, I went to another room to get some materials for the day. When I opened the door and turned on the light, there was Sean and Kathy. Kathy was clinging to Sean, and they froze when they saw me. I quickly took a photo with my cell phone and left the room. Then, I rushed to report the incident to my supervisor and showed the photo. My supervisor was furious, knowing about the affair. Soon after, the two of them were called to the president's office with me. As I told everything, Sean tried to explain away the incident in the room as a misunderstanding. However, the company had recently installed cameras in each room that could capture clear footage even in the dark, and of course, there was footage from the room. With no way out, Sean faced a cancellation of raise. Kathy couldn't renew her contract. Sean, unable to bear the scrutiny, resigned voluntarily. Finally, I could return to a peaceful life. 6 months later, I was at the airport to pick up Mina. We reunited and chatted on our way back to my former home. Mina used her key to enter the house. As we walked in, I stayed behind Mina, recording everything.
"You! What are you doing entering someone else's house? This is my house, though?"
I joined in.
"Hey there. Marco?"
"Yes, this is my sister's house. Didn't you know?" Indeed, the house belonged to my sister Mina. I had been living there at Mina's request to take care of it while she was away. That's why I reported to Mina when I started living with Sean, and she gave her permission. Moreover, the utility bills were automatically paid from Mina's account. It was a thoughtful arrangement Mina made for my convenience. Had Sean not realized he hadn't been paying for utilities all this time? Normally, I think they'd notice right away, but maybe they're just daydreaming. Even so, Kathy had been living alone, so she should have known about utilities. But the fact that she didn't realize it is beyond surprising. It's actually hilarious.
I brought a copy of the half-year statement since you and Margot divorced. Wonder how much it adds up to. Let's see, including the alimony, the amount to buy this house would be $500,000, right?
Sean is shocked looking at the statement. Hearing our voices, Kathy comes out of the bedroom.
Why are you here? And who is that woman?
Oh, this is my sister Mina. Besides, it's Mina's house, so it's not odd for the owner to be here, right? You look well, that's good. Now you can pay the money. As I say that, Kathy mutters "oh no" under her breath. Sean says, I don't have such a large sum as $500,000. Then, should I sue you for trespassing? I pretend to call the police. Sean hastily says he'll figure something out. Just then, the doorbell rings. It seems the lawyer I called has arrived.
Since we're here, let's have a detailed discussion with the lawyer present.
The lawyer who helped me during my divorce seemed to have a good grasp of the situation. When the lawyer handed Sean the official documents, he visibly slumped in disappointment. Kathy starts to get angry again.
I didn't know this wasn't Sean's house. I was told it was his, so I just lived here.
Well, it doesn't really matter. Let's have Sean pay up. Kathy was making a fuss, saying she made no such promise and there's no proof, and that $60,000 is too much. So, I played the recording of our conversation from 6 months ago. See, there's your proof, I say, and she can't say anything back. Sean suddenly realizes something.
By the way, Kathy, you mentioned earlier about having only 6 months to live. What's that about?
Kathy tries to change the subject.
Okay. We'll pay, just leave.
With that, we quickly leave. Sean ends up buying the house from Mina, but considering the amount, he decides to sell it instead. About a month later, Sean visited my parents' house. I hesitate but decide to open the door, thinking it could be interesting.
Glad you're home. I wanted to talk to Margot. Is that okay?
Sure. If it's here, that's fine. Make it quick. So, what's up? Sean's story boils down to him claiming he was deceived and wasn't in the wrong. He initially refused Kathy's advances but ended up getting involved with her after going out for drinks just once. He said the relationship just kind of dragged on from there and he felt powerless to stop it. I see, so you couldn't help it. Poor you.
You understand, Margot?
No, I don't. People who really couldn't help it wouldn't act like this. I showed him the photos I took when I followed him. Sean falls silent. After a while, Sean starts talking again, as if remembering something.
Right, I didn't want a divorce. It was Kathy's fault, that was the part one couldn't help.
I ask why he didn't want to divorce, and Sean starts explaining. Kathy was a cute affair partner. It seems she had a terminal illness with only 6 months to live and was going to leave Sean. So, Sean's plan was to not divorce and spend those 6 months with Kathy, then come back to me. Hearing this gave me the creeps. I seriously wondered if a few screws were loose in his head. Then, unexpectedly, Kathy, who shouldn't know where my parents' house is, showed up.
Sean. I knew you'd be here with this woman. I've got a GPS app, so finding this place was easy. What do you think you're doing, running away from me? Do you realize what's gonna happen?
Apparently, Sean had fled to my place to escape from Kathy. He tried to run away after finding out her terminal illness was a lie, but Kathy was clingy and wouldn't let him go. He came to me crying about it. Seeing this, Kathy flew into a rage and, for some reason, grabbed my arm and started complaining.
It's all your fault. You're the one who demanded alimony and schemed about the house. It's creepy how you're trying to take my man too. You've messed up my life.
How about not passing the buck? Weren't you and Sean the ones who hurt me first?
If that's the case, you can't complain about getting a taste of your own medicine, right?
You hurt my life, so it's only fair. Kathy's tone got nastier as she heated up. In the middle of our argument, Sean stepped in to stop us.
Stop fighting over me.
No, we're not. What are you misunderstanding? Even if asked, I wouldn't want a guy like you. If you two would just leave and stop bothering me. Sean looked stunned at my words. He probably thought I was still hung up on him. The thought of how delusional he was made me want to laugh. I was so tired of all this that I said I would call the police, and they left as if running away. I thought I'd avoid any further involvement, but Sean was stubborn. The next day, after work, there was Sean with a bouquet of flowers in front of my office. Why are you here?
Margot! Marry me again!
He shouted so loudly that everyone gathered around. I was so embarrassed I felt like my face was on fire. I tried to ignore him and leave, but Sean grabbed my arm and held me back.
I said it was impossible yesterday. Did you forget already? I'm amazed. Don't do this. I mean, I told you not to bother me ever again.
Sean didn't seem to give up, and he kept holding my arm. Just then, someone pulled him away from me. It was Mina.
I secretly came back here, and I thought I'd surprise you by picking you up from work, but I'm really glad I came back.
Mina? Oh, Mina, I've fallen for you. I don't need Margot. I want you. So, marry me. I'll follow you anywhere, even overseas. Sean said, holding both of Mina's hands. Everyone around, including me and Mina, were taken aback by Sean's actions. Mina said it hurt, but Sean didn't let go of her hands. I instinctively shouted, dangerous. But it was too late. Mina suddenly flipped Sean over her shoulder. I hadn't mentioned it, but Mina used to train. Her sharp movements were still impressive. I was admiring them, thinking how dangerous she looked when her expression changed. That's when the police, alerted by the commotion, showed up. They seemed confused by the scene of a man down and a woman standing. Anyway, Sean was taken away by the police. That's when Sean finally shouted his true feelings. I don't care whether it's Margot or Mina. I just need someone to pay off my debts for me. Even after selling the house, there's still a debt of $400,000. I don't know what to do. I'll take anyone who'll pay it off for me. Please. As Sean was led away, Mina and I watched him go with cold eyes. The onlookers were saying things like, "That's just wrong, too much, and that lady is so cool." To ensure such an incident never happened again, Mina and I went to the police to request a restraining order. During Mina's stay, we decided to move out of my parents' house and into a high-security condo. Kathy, realizing that Sean had publicly proposed to me and not her, decided to leave him. That made sense. Why stay with a cheating man who doesn't value you, especially with nearly $400,000 in debt remaining? Kathy seemed to have woken up to reality, but she hadn't learned her lesson. She didn't want to work and was looking for a wealthy person to marry and dump the debt on. She even persistently pursued a married wealthy man in town despite being rejected. Eventually, his wife found out and had a restraining order issued against Kathy. Undeterred, Kathy's attempts became more aggressive. She even broke into a house through a window and tried to steal valuables, only to be caught when the security company arrived. Kathy ended up being taken care of by the police for a while. As for Sean, after pulling off such a stunt, he couldn't stay in the area and went back to his hometown, only to be disowned by his parents. His relatives, knowing the situation, also cut ties with him, and eventually, his friends did the same after he asked them for money. Left alone, Sean started working in a factory. He is living there but still trapped in a mountain of debt. He occasionally called me with an anonymous number, so I recently got a new phone. Now, I can finally enjoy some peace in my daily life. Since then, life has been truly peaceful, and I've even found someone I like at work. Mina is still thriving overseas, and although she only comes back occasionally, we sisters are as close as ever. I love my cool and reliable sister Mina so much. She's my pride and joy. I hope we can continue to get along without fighting, and maintain a good relationship.
Well, I guess marrying that old hag was impossible. I'm looking for a younger bride, so I canceled the engagement.
My fiancé, who is just 1 year younger, called me an old hag. That alone was shocking, but to cancel the engagement too. My fiancé, Bob, had a captivating charm. Always surrounded by people, Bob carried himself with confidence. He cheated on me more than once, not just once or twice. Each time, I forgave him. I clenched my fist and welcomed Bob with a welcome home, and at night, I quietly shed tears of frustration alone. I couldn't take it anymore. I can't forgive Bob. No, maybe I've never truly forgiven him even once. I've just pretended and covered it up to be with him because I want to. Now, the backlash is hitting me all at once. I looked at Bob. Bob. I won't let your whims and selfishness control me anymore. From now on, I'll live by my own will. As the first step, let's give Bob a punishment. Now, are you prepared? My name is Catherine O'Connor. Just the other day, I celebrated my 32nd birthday with my ex-fiancé Bob. I've been in a relationship with Bob for 18 years. When we met, we were still in junior high school. Since then, it feels like I've been living according to Bob's whims. Nodding to Bob's selfishness, accepting Bob's requests. As we did that, both Bob and I crossed the age of 30. I began to think about marrying Bob, and I thought Bob would too. So he gave me an engagement ring. I thought that's why he gave it to me. I wonder how much more I can endure. The days of betrayal from Bob. I met Bob when I was a second-year junior high school student. Bob Reynolds, a first-year student who had just enrolled, confessed to me.
Please go out with me. Huh, really?
I was taken aback. Being confessed to by someone I had just met was quite unexpected. But I also felt happy. Bob was already tall and handsome, and above all, I felt proud to be the one confessed to. I had a sense of superiority and excitement that I might date a boy before anyone else. So I nodded. Sure, I'm Bob Reynolds.
Nice to meet you.
He called me that once, and then Bob blushed and looked at me. He hesitated and said something like this.
Is it okay if we hold hands?
Huh, Bob?
Sure, right, Catherine?
Mischievous voice and expression. That's when I completely fell for Bob. But the elation didn't last long. Catherine, you're dating Bob, right?
Oh, yeah.
I wondered why my classmates knew about it. Perhaps my confusion showed, as another classmate chimed in. Bob has been spreading the word. If you're a student at this school, everyone probably knows.
What, Bob?
I couldn't believe it.
Why would you do something like that?
After school, I asked Bob that question.
If it gets to the teacher, it'll be a big problem.
I'm sorry. But I was so happy. I wanted everyone to know that Catherine is my girlfriend. Bob answered, his head down. Be more careful next time.
Yeah, I'd be happy if you could.
At this point, I forgave Bob. In fact, I found Bob cute beyond words. If I had a little brother, would I feel this way? No. Back then, I recognized that he was a much more annoying yet sweet presence than a little brother. That's why Bob's initial betrayal hurt so much. A mocking voice saying, "She's the school's top beauty, huh?" It was so different from what was directed at me that I didn't immediately realize it was Bob's voice. However, once I did, there was no mistaking it was him. During school break time, I was about to visit Bob's class when I overheard that exchange in the hallway. This school isn't low level, is it? She's below average there.
But her figure is good, isn't it? Oh yeah, her chest? Her boobs are definitely big. I'm looking forward to that. Well, that's a relief. Bob is a man after all. Oh, yeah. Sleazy laughter erupted. A group of boys, with Bob at the center, had gathered. They seemed to be excited about my appearance. I leaned against the wall, unable to move from the spot. My legs were trembling. Catherine, are you okay? Oh, yeah. My classmates came over, suspicious of my behavior. Unaware, Bob continued to frolic with the other boys. What's with that? So low. It's important to go along with the conversation. I answered, my voice choked with tears. Catherine. I guess he's embarrassed by the teasing from others. That's why he said such things. My words stopped there. Tears started to overflow. Accompanied by my classmates, I cried as I went back to my classroom. From then on, Bob often darkened my heart. If there was a girl at another school who was popular, he would immediately go after her. It seems that some of them actually tried to get serious with Bob. Catherine, you have to go. Spurred on by my classmates, I headed to the scene of Bob's date with his affair. When he saw me, Bob's face turned pale. Catherine. Who's this? The girl he was cheating with was prettier than many others. If I had left things as they were, maybe Bob would have moved on to her. Suppressing my desire to run away, I answered. I'm Bob's girlfriend. Catherine. Bob called my name almost like a scream. The other girl gave Bob a stern look. Oh. Wait. You've been lying. That's the worst. No, it's not like that. Bob watched her leave with a pained voice and expression. Left behind, Bob turned to me, looking completely frightened. Catherine, I need to tell you something. What do you mean? My voice was cold. In response, Bob floundered like a fish out of water, opening and closing his mouth. But eventually, he seemed to find an excuse. She was so persistent. Whenever I confronted him, Bob would always say this. It was just one date. You're my main girl, Catherine. Yeah. I nodded. Not because I was convinced, but because I knew arguing further wouldn't make Bob apologize. And more than anything, I didn't want to be disliked by Bob for nagging about his affairs. What started as a relationship of superiority had become dominated by Bob. Even about my future, Bob insisted I choose a high school that suited his academic level and convenience. We should go to the same high school, right? Yeah, but my teacher said I could go to a better one. Are you going to abandon me? Bob looked at me with tearful eyes. At this point, I could see through his fake tears. Still, I couldn't stand up to him. Okay, I'll go to the same high school as you, Bob. Great! Wait for me there, Catherine. When his opinion prevailed, Bob showed a sweet smile. It was a reward for me, and I kept pushing myself just to see that smile. When I told my parents which high school I wanted to go to, my mom openly showed her disappointment in me. Why are you going to such a boring high school? That's right. You should graduate from a decent college and get a job with a future. My dad added. But I insisted, all my friends are going to that high school, using a poor lie. In reality, my friends had chosen better high schools. And I knew there was no benefit in matching my choices to Bob's poor academic performance. Lying to my parents like this was a first for me. I was torn between feeling guilty towards my parents and keeping my promise to Bob. I'm disappointed in you, they said, ending the conversation. From the next day, my parents visibly started treating me differently. In contrast, Bob was in a great mood. Catherine, thank you. Now we'll be together in high school too. Yeah. I was confused about whether I was doing the right thing or making a mistake. Bob was smiling. All that mattered was that. After starting high school, I frequently had troubles with my parents. I spent too much on in-game purchases this month. Is the game that interesting? Yeah, it's really fun. You should try it, Catherine. Maybe I will.
The casual game I started in such a light-hearted manner turned out to be the beginning of new troubles. Normally, I wouldn't have cared so much, because I never really liked the game. The problem was its friend feature. Players cooperated in events, and Bob invited me to the game for this purpose.
Catherine, your character is weak. Pull more gotcha to strengthen our team. I'm sorry.
Following Bob's directions in the game, our characters did get stronger. But the spending increased too. My mom noticed.
Not only did you go to a bad school, now you're wasting money on games. What are you doing? But my friends. If those are your friends, you're better off alone. Don't say that.
For the first time, I talked back to my mom. I wouldn't let her say Bob wasn't good for me.
Talking back to your parents.
Mom looked angry and sad, a complex expression on her face. Since then, I hardly spoke with my parents. When I discussed this with Bob, he showed his usual smile. That's fine. It's your life, Catherine. Is it? I wondered if Bob saying that was appropriate. Was I really living my life? Or was I just following Bob's orders, forced into a life convenient for him? By the time I realized this, it was too late. After graduating from high school, I chose to work. My parents had completely given up on me. I couldn't even think of going to college. Especially since Bob seemed against the idea. Catherine, you wouldn't betray me, right?
Yeah.
I nodded as usual. Bob had dropped out of high school. There's no need for me at school after Catherine graduates. But in reality, it was due to a conflict with a teacher. No company wanted to hire Bob with only a middle school education. At best, he could only find part-time jobs, and even there, he often caused trouble. That boss is so arrogant, it's annoying.
Did you quit your job again?
I asked, feeling somewhat fed up. By this time, Bob and I had started living together. After my parents found out about my relationship with Bob, they finally kicked me out. Bob, who had a strained relationship with his family, moved into my apartment with just his belongings.
It's the start of a fun life together. Yeah.
Bob seemed genuinely happy. But I was just forcing a smile. I knew it would just be more trouble. People around me said I should break up with Bob. He's just a freeloader now.
He's trying to work, at least. He wants to. But I saw him skip work and go to the gaming arcade. Who said that?
My voice was cold. My friends gradually started distancing themselves from me. I knew. I knew they were right. Bob wasn't thinking about my happiness. But I thought I couldn't be happy without Bob. I really believed that. Then it happened.
I can't marry an old lady. I'm gonna find a younger fiancé, so our engagement is off, LOL.
Bob took off the engagement ring from my finger and declared.
Bob. I was out of my mind.
Bob's smile was no longer sweet. It was a nasty smirk, looking down on me.
Catherine, you're 32, right?
Not young, clearly.
I'm only a year older than you.
I tried a futile retort. Bob was always dismissive about his own age. He simply wanted to switch to a younger, cuter girl. And Bob had already cheated on me with several girls. He was good-looking and knew how to charm. Seducing girls was easy for him. The relationships didn't last because of Bob's selfish nature and financial unreliability. I was the witness to that. The biggest victim of Bob's deceit. So, thanks for everything. Bye, Catherine. Bob waved his hand flippantly. The ring he had taken from my finger gripped in it. I wondered who he intended to give that ring to next. I thought to myself. And then, I made a decision. Bob. I won't let you have your way anymore. Goodbye, Bob.
Oh, you understand? That's my Catherine, always got why I liked you.
Is that so? It seemed like Bob's feelings for me were a thing of the past. Maybe they never existed in the first place.
Now that you understand, please leave.
Huh?
Forgot? I'm the one who rented this apartment.
Ah, I see.
So you're kicking me out, huh? Bob said with a thin smile. Bob smirked, thinking I was joking. I smiled too. And those clothes.
What?
Everything you're wearing, I bought it. Well, keep the underwear. But return the rest. I'll sell them to a thrift store.
You're telling me to leave in just my underwear?
Bob shouted.
I must have at least one outfit I bought myself.
Nope. I have the receipts if you need proof.
Receipts?
Yes, from the clothing store. I kept all of them, along with every bill, groceries, utilities, everything.
What the heck?
Bob's voice grew pitiful.
You don't need to take the toothbrush, right? And since we have 2 sets of dishes,
I'll throw them out.
then at least give me.
No. You can only take what you bought yourself. Bob looked out the window in despair.
It's snowing outside.
Yeah. I nodded calmly. Bob, shivering, begged.
At least let me keep the jacket, please.
Fine. You can wear what's underneath. But not the jacket. It's a brand worth good money. I smiled emptily. The jacket I bought for Bob. He had insisted, and I had indulged him. Just a year ago. The black long coat looked great on him. At that time, I was so proud.
You're a devil.
I'm fine with being a devil. I'm just an old lady anyway. I waved my hand at the door and closed it, thinking I need to change the locks soon. I had taken back the spare key from Bob, but he might still have another one.
You'll regret treating me this way. I'll never see you again.
I heard Bob's parting words. I slumped down, holding my head. I was anxious. I had impulsively broken up with him, but could I really come to hate Bob? After all the time we spent together. Bob would no longer be in my coming days. I had lost his smile forever. I lifted my head, leaning against the door, and began to laugh.
Bob is gone. He's really gone.
I finally felt free. There was a sense of relief and fulfillment. Bob had long ceased to be a romantic interest. I was just with him out of inertia. Being with Bob meant constantly worrying about upsetting him, making it impossible to be myself. I understand that clearly now. I don't need you anymore, Bob. This turned out to be just right. He left on his own. A single tear ran down my cheek.
Ah,
I realized then. I had written him off long ago. He was nothing but harmful to me, and I was surprised at my own weakness for having turned a blind eye. And yet, there was a slight feeling of loneliness. But that feeling would end today. Get ready for tomorrow, Bob. I looked around the empty room and murmured.
let's do this.
I was switching gears. It was going to be busy. The first thing to do was definitely changing the locks. The landlord said, "It's good you broke up. Your boyfriend was not well liked in the apartment." Is that so? I accepted the words more calmly than I thought I would. The old me would have been furious. Any negative talk about Bob was unbearable. But now, it's different. Like a cloudy sky clearing up rapidly, my thoughts were also becoming clear. Please take care of the lock change. Sure, I'll handle it, replied the landlord with a firm nod. As I was halfway up the stairs back to my apartment, another tenant stopped me. Excuse me. What can I do for you? You were engaged to Bob, right? It's ex-fiancé now. Oh, so you broke up. The tenant furrowed her brows in distress. After looking around, she, appearing to be about a college student's age, said, "Please come to my apartment." Why? I've been harassed by him. He spread rumors that we're dating, and his stalking has gotten worse. It's scary. Therefore, she said, looking intently at me, clasping her hands together as if in prayer. He said he'd marry me after breaking up with you.
What?
But you seem normal, not like the terrible woman he described.
He spoke ill of me? I couldn't hide my dismay. Guided by her, I visited her room. There, I was told about Bob's disturbing behavior, which was truly disheartening to hear.
I knew he sometimes took money from my wallet, but to buy you gifts with it?
Yes.
He barely works, yet he's always splurging. Turns out, he was stealing from his fiancé's wallet.
I looked up at the ceiling, astounded. While drinking the tea she offered, the woman said,
I should have told you sooner. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
We're both suffering because of the same man.
I replied with a wry smile.
But now, we need to think about the future. The future?
She blinked in surprise. I said, yes.
How are we going to deal with Bob now?
I shared my ideas with her. And she listened intently, nodding and interjecting occasionally. Then I added something important.
I actually knew about you before.
What? She looked shocked. It was a natural reaction. Even though we lived in the same apartment, our paths rarely crossed. Our interaction was limited to nodding in the hallways due to different life rhythms. I pulled out a bundle of documents from my shoe.
Please don't be upset when you open this. I had all of Bob's affairs investigated by a private detective.
What? She looked at me. Her eyes filled with a mix of fear and surprise. I smiled reassuringly, trying to ease her tension.
The report said that Bob was the one obsessively fixating on you one-sidedly.
Please believe me. I have nothing to do with him.
I believe you. Please calm down. Thank you.
She sighed in relief.
The report clarified that out of 5 women, 3 were in clear romantic relationships with Bob. You and another woman were just being pursued by him.
Is that so?
There are others suffering the same as me.
Emily hung her head, visibly pained. Knowing there were others in similar situations probably evoked empathy and sympathy in her. I leaned in slightly and suggested,
shall we meet them?
Meet them?
Yes, the 3 of us, together with you, can confront Bob.
Confront him? But how?
Through legal action,
I said, emphasizing my words.
First, let's consult the police and get a stalking assessment. Bob isn't smart enough to give up easily. We'll have our chance to press charges.
To use me as bait to lure him?
That's not what I meant.
I was flustered. Indeed. It sounded like I was imposing danger on her. As I was about to retract my suggestion, she nodded.
I'll do it.
Do what?
I'll be the bait. If it means defeating him. Are you sure?
I felt like I saw a fire in her eyes.
Then, from now on, we're allies.
Yes. Oh, I'm Emily Johnson, by the way. She introduced herself, a bit belatedly but politely. This introduction led to Emily and me becoming closer. Unaware of our plans, Bob, as expected, continued to press Emily for marriage. I decided it was time to confront Bob. Together with Emily. Seeing me, Bob screamed in shock. What the heck, Emily, why are you with Catherine?
We are allies,
Emily replied, avoiding his gaze.
It's not just us.
Why are you all here? Bob exclaimed, bewildered. 4 young and beautiful women appeared. They were all women Bob had pursued. One of them, like Emily, had been a victim of his stalking. And looked at Bob with anger-filled eyes. The other 3 acknowledged they had been in relationships with Bob. Under the pretense of marriage. In essence, all of them had been deceived by Bob. I didn't know you had a fiancé, Bob. It's a misunderstanding. I've already broken up with her. Then what about the other girls? They all seem to think they're going to marry you, including me. Ah. Including myself, there were 6 of us women. Among them, a particularly assertive woman was enraged to learn Bob had played with her feelings. When she realized that Bob had deceived her just for fun, she became furiously angry with immense intensity. Now, she was confronting him. Bob, being yelled at by the woman, turned to me with tearful eyes. With tears in his eyes, he said,
"Catherine, it was you, wasn't it? You told them all."
"Yes, I did," I replied, tilting my head.
"But Bob, you're the one who deceived everyone. Even so, to call them all at once. Help, forgive me."
Bob was surrounded by the other women, each airing their grievances. Everyone had been genuinely in love with Bob. I understood. I had felt the same way. Watching Bob and the women, I felt a mix of pride and strangeness. A year has passed since that incident. Emily and I continued to stay in touch, now visiting each other's apartments.
"So, you see."
As I was talking, my smartphone rang. I chose to ignore it, continuing my story. Emily looked puzzled.
"Aren't you going to answer that, Catherine?" "Oh, it's fine. It's nothing important." "Really?"
Emily blinked in surprise. I smiled wryly, already knowing who was calling. It was Bob.
"Bob keeps calling me every time he gets a new girlfriend." "Why?" "He's upset because Ashley tells each new girlfriend about his past. He wants me to make her stop." "Oh."
Emily sighed, seeming to expect such behavior from Ashley, who was one of the women confronting Bob that day.
"I doubt she'd listen even if I asked her. She's not the type to easily heed others' advice." "I guess so."
We shared a bitter laugh. Bob's calls came at all hours. During meals, at work, even while I was with friends.
"Enough already."
Once, unable to bear it, I answered his call. Bob sounded desperate.
"Please, make her stop. Ashley's making my life hell. You brought this on yourself."
I replied, thinking about the evening's plans. Tonight was a potluck party at Emily's house. My friend Emily and her friends were gathering to enjoy a winter night around a hot pot. Excited for the evening, I wasn't really listening to Bob's complaints. I just said what was on my mind, nothing more.
"You made 6 women, including me, unhappy. That's a fact you have to live with. You talk about bearing consequences, but I'm not even dating anyone now. Emily treats me like a stalker. Every time I find a new girlfriend, instead of starting over, thanks to Ashley's interference, they all end up leaving me. I can't help you with that."
Ashley's grudge seemed deep. Even if I tried to stop her, it wouldn't mean much.
"Is that all you called for? Just that? What's with your cold response? Don't you feel a bit sorry for me?"
No, I don't.
I'm a heartless old lady, remember?
With that, I ended the call. Then, I muttered to myself.
I'm still bothered by being called old.
Surprised by my own reaction. I shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts. That's when I saw him.
"Oh. Catherine. Long time no see."
A man was approaching with a smile. At first, I didn't recognize him, but there was a hint of familiarity in his smile. Thanks to that, I was able to recall who he was. "Michael?
Mom told me to come by this area. Never thought I'd run into you, Catherine."
The cheerful man was Michael. My childhood friend. Bob kept contacting me even after all that had happened. I was amazed and exasperated by his relentless efforts, but I continued to ignore him. I once changed my phone number, but he even showed up at my apartment, making it hard to turn him away. So, I reluctantly kept the same number and just ignored his calls.
"I can have a serious talk with him if you want." "No, it's fine. I've decided not to get involved with Bob anymore."
"Okay then." Michael seemed a bit disappointed as he nodded. He had returned from New York for a matchmaking meeting arranged by his mother.
"How about you, Catherine?" "No, I'm estranged from my parents." "That's harsh."
Michael frowned.
"Your ex really messed up your life. I was naive. I dreamed and depended on him."
Now I understand. Bob was the center of my life. Constantly worrying about his mood, living on his words. I'm fine now. I can walk alone.
If you say so.
Michael seemed not fully convinced. To assure him, I pulled out something.
What's that?
My college diploma. I secretly enrolled in an online university while I was with Bob. I didn't want to disappoint my parents who had hopes for me. But I couldn't betray Bob either. So I chose to study in my spare time.
That's surprising.
Michael laughed heartily.
That's good, right? Now you can aim for a career upgrade.
Yeah, maybe. We laughed together, then my phone rang again. Michael scratched his head and said,
Hey, Catherine. What? Why don't you date me instead? What are you talking about?
I was dumbfounded. The phone kept ringing.
Just because you don't like arranged meetings. It's not about that.
Michael's voice was serious. His smile had faded, replaced by a look of tension.
I've always had feelings for you. Are you joking? I'm serious.
Michael argued with a flushed face. Seeing him like that, I couldn't help but smile genuinely. I eventually gave in to Michael's persistence and started dating him. Being the same age as Michael played a part, but we also connected well in conversation. This was a refreshing change from my time with Bob, where I always had to conform to his ways. The ease and openness I found in my relationship with Michael felt almost surreal. The calls from Bob still continued. Each time the phone rang, Michael would look annoyed or sad. But when I took his hand and smiled, he'd relax.
It's okay. You're here with me.
Catherine. Michael looked momentarily uneasy, but then nodded firmly.
I'll protect you, Catherine. I'm an old lady, you know. If you're an old lady, then I'm an old man. We're the same age.
Right. Maybe those words didn't hold much weight for Michael. But they helped me finally break free from the curse of being called old. My granddaughter was born, and Cheryl's condition has significantly stabilized. I received news of her discharge from the hospital, so I took my niece, Sarah, to visit my eldest son and his wife's house. As soon as Sarah saw the baby sleeping in the crib, she exclaimed, "What a cute baby." But this child's dad is an uncle, right? Why are you hiding that this is the uncle's child? It's sad if the uncle doesn't raise him. Everyone present widened their eyes at her words. Sarah has always been able to see mysterious things. She can see connections between people that are invisible to the eye. If Sarah says so, there must be no mistake. I completely believed in her supernatural ability. If that's the case, what Yosef has been doing. Just thinking about it makes my skin crawl. I deeply regret not realizing it sooner. However, I can't just stand still. Sarah gave me advice. That's why I must carry out my revenge. My name is Kelly, a 50-something housewife. I live with my husband, Yosef. We have one son, our eldest, Stevie, who has left home and started his own family. We received news that our eldest son's wife, named Cheryl, was pregnant. This would be their first child. They had been thinking about the difficulties of pregnancy for a while, so during Cheryl's pregnancy, they stayed with us. Cheryl's condition was worse than expected. She often spent entire days confined to her room. I thought it wasn't good for either the baby or Cheryl, so, knowing it was meddlesome, I decided to take her outside. Cheryl, staying in your room all the time isn't good for you.
I'm not saying you have to go out in the sun, but could you at least come to the living room and show your face?
I know I'm being pushy. Since she came to our house 2 weeks ago, Cheryl hadn't shown her face to me after the first day. It seemed she was eating only what Stevie bought, which made me worry even more about her health. However, when I called through Cheryl's door, there was no response. Maybe she had collapsed inside. That would be a serious matter, and I needed to act quickly. With that in mind, I said, "I'm coming in," and opened the door, only to find Cheryl lying on the bed, looking at her phone. It seemed she wasn't physically ill, which was a relief. But then why didn't she respond when I called through the door? Irritated, I said a bit harshly, "If you're feeling okay, you could have responded. I was really worried about you. What if you had collapsed in your room?" I regretted my tone afterwards and apologized. "Sorry, I was too harsh. But I was truly worried, that's why." I was tormented by the thought that my actions might worsen my relationship with Cheryl. I couldn't bear the thought that my actions might negatively affect Cheryl and the baby. I was tormented by all sorts of thoughts swirling in my head. Cheryl finally spoke. "That's terrible." Her words pierced my heart. Unable to say anything, Cheryl continued to stab me with her words.
"You're terrible for stressing out a pregnant woman. You know my body isn't just mine right now, right? If I get stressed and sick, the baby will suffer too. You get that? You must understand, having given birth to Stevie yourself. Pregnancy is really tough. No matter what, you shouldn't stress out a pregnant woman by using such harsh words."
Cheryl lashed out at me in one breath. But it was my fault. I should have thought things through and acted more considerately for Cheryl's sake.
"Cheryl, I'm truly sorry. I didn't mean to. I was just worried about you. The thing is, your concern is just meddling. Get this straight, you and I aren't family. We're complete strangers. Why would strangers be interested in each other's business, right? So please, just leave me alone. Even if I collapse, I won't take help from you. Got it?"
I wondered if my actions had really been so untrustworthy. Had I been so terrible to be told we're not family? The words "not family" pierced and tore at my heart, making it painful to even stand there. Cheryl looked at me, chuckled, and said, "Why are you just standing there? This is my room. Can you, a stranger and not family, please leave? Having someone who's not family in my room is stressful. What if it affects the baby?"
"I'm sorry, but..." "No excuses. Now, get out. I can manage without your help."
With that, Cheryl stood up and pushed me out of her room. I was thrown out and the door slammed shut behind me. That's what happened. I later talked to Yosef during dinner. Yosef then said, "Cheryl must have her own reasons. It's not good to step in too much." But I, believing that family should at least support and interact with each other, couldn't accept his view and replied, "But that's just sad, isn't it? You're the one making things difficult. Learn to be more considerate of others." His words stabbed deep into my heart. Not family. A source of stress. Could it be that my existence is just a nuisance to Cheryl? Were all my actions out of concern for Cheryl just meddling? I lost confidence in my actions. Uncertain of what to do next, I stopped interacting with Cheryl entirely. Then, Cheryl was hospitalized for childbirth and safely delivered a baby. It was a healthy baby girl.
"We'll take care of our child on our own, so please don't get involved,"
she said, and they returned home. Stevie seemed apologetic about Cheryl's words, but I reassured him, "Don't worry about it." Since then, I hadn't been able to see my granddaughter. It's my first grandchild, yet I couldn't meet her. I tried contacting Stevie, but apparently, Cheryl's not in good health, and they don't want to add any unnecessary stress. A few days later, my niece, Sarah, came to visit. She's in 2nd grade this year, the daughter of my sister's family, and has been very dear to our family since she was a baby. Stevie also really likes his younger cousin, Sarah. Knowing she was here, he said, "We'd love for her to come over." It seems Cheryl's condition has stabilized. So I took Sarah to visit my eldest son and his family. While Stevie happily went to get some juice, Sarah, Cheryl, and I went to see the baby sleeping in the room. "This is our daughter." "Is this your first time meeting a baby, Sarah?" Cheryl seemed kind to Sarah, probably because she had seen Stevie getting along well with her. However, when I tried to pick up the baby, Cheryl sternly told me, "Oh, please don't touch my daughter. I can't risk you injuring her." So, I decided to just watch quietly. With Cheryl's help, Sarah held my granddaughter. Then, Sarah said something shocking, "What a cute baby. But her dad is my uncle, right? Why are you hiding that she's the uncle's child? It's sad if the uncle doesn't raise her.
Sarah, what are you saying?
Cheryl was trembling so much, it was the perfect word to describe her state. Stevie returned with the juice and was taken aback by the tense atmosphere. That's when it all clicked for me. That's why Cheryl had been acting like that. All the things that had happened to me suddenly made sense. At the same time, I felt an unbearable anger towards Cheryl and Yosef. That's why I decided to take revenge. Cheryl, this child is mine and Stevie's. So don't say she's Yosef's. Cheryl quietly took the baby from Sarah's arms and said. But Sarah tilted her head even more and insisted, but her dad is Uncle Yosef. I can see it clearly. She's Cheryl's and Uncle Yosef's child. Why is Stevie raising her? Cheryl's reaction was evasive and hesitant. Sarah has a special ability. She can feel connections between people that are usually invisible to the eye. But sometimes, she shares these feelings with me. Sarah's insights have never been wrong. So my sister's family and I wholeheartedly believe in her abilities. Stevie, too. Stunned by Sarah's words, Stevie asked, "What's all this about? Is what Sarah's saying true? If so, then you." But Cheryl, in a sudden burst of anger, retorted, "Are you believing what this kid says? I'm your wife. If I say it's your child, then it is. It's her fault for spouting nonsense. Correct yourself right now. This child is mine and Stevie's." Her demeanor was completely different from her usual composure. It made us realize she had hit a nerve. Shocked by Cheryl's outburst, Sarah hid behind me. While protecting her, I said, "We'll leave for today and talk again later." Stevie nodded in agreement. We didn't discuss anything further and went home without explaining anything to Yosef. Later, Stevie and I decided to gather more evidence against Cheryl and Yosef before confronting them. A few days later, after discussing with Stevie, we decided to have a family meeting at my eldest son's house. Stevie needed to prepare certain things, and I had tasks to complete too, so this preparation period was essential. I had hired a detective agency to investigate Yosef's activities. Despite concerns that Cheryl might not reveal anything since she was at the scene, Yosef, unaware of everything, inadvertently provided evidence of their affair. This evidence was shared with Stevie. Meanwhile, Stevie had arranged a DNA test for the baby, confirming the child was not his. Further testing revealed a parental link to Yosef. In other words, the child Cheryl gave birth to was not Stevie's but Yosef's and Cheryl's. With irrefutable evidence in writing, I won't let them make any excuses. I intend to corner them both thoroughly. Why did you call us here all of a sudden? Is something wrong? Yosef, unaware of anything, asked nonchalantly. Stevie and I seemed busy, and Cheryl was fidgeting, seemingly sensing that something unusual was going on. Actually, there's something I want to talk about. With that, I broached the main subject. You two have been having an affair, haven't you? And for a long time. This child is actually Yosef and Cheryl's, isn't it? You tried to pass her off as Stevie's child, right? At my words, Yosef exclaimed in surprise, "What?" Then, in a flustered manner, he said, "How can you say such a thing? There's no way Cheryl and I could be in that kind of relationship. Cheryl is Stevie's wife, isn't she? I would never make a move on her. It's insulting to both Cheryl and me, apologize." Yeah, right. Do you even have any proof? There's none, right? You can't possibly be believing what that child said, can you? Believing the words of an 8-year-old kid? That's impossible. Yosef and Cheryl both vehemently denied their relationship. To be honest, this was within the realm of our expectations. We knew all too well that they wouldn't easily admit to their affair. Before you go on, would you please look at this? Stevie said, presenting a piece of paper to Cheryl, who was busy making excuses. It was the result of a DNA test. The facts were clearly stated there. The baby born was not Stevie's but Yosef's child. Seeing this, Cheryl and Yosef turned pale.
This is a fabrication. I would never cheat, Stevie knows that best, right? Please, believe me over this piece of paper.
No matter what you say, the test results don't lie. You've been lying to me all this time. That's exactly what's written on this paper. Stop making excuses and admit your guilt already. Apologize for hurting me and my mother. I don't even want to see your face anymore. Cheryl, looking dejected, hung her head. It's not true, it's not my fault. Yosef came on to me. I never planned to have a child. Believe me, it's true. Cheryl tried to escape blame by shifting it all onto Yosef. Of course, such behavior was inexcusable. Yosef, facing the blame being shifted onto him, turned red with anger and exclaimed, "What are you talking about? You're the one who came on to me, saying you wanted a child with me, suggesting passing it off as mine. You were the one hinting at that." He grabbed Cheryl by the collar in frustration. But Cheryl was not intimidated.
What are you talking about? It's all your fault. If only you had hidden it better, everything would have been fine. I did hide it well. It's your fault for not being able to deceive. What did you say? Blaming everything on others, how dare you?
Cheryl and Yosef continued to argue fiercely in front of us. Their dispute escalating by the minute, showing no signs of stopping. We could have let them argue, but that wouldn't help us achieve our revenge, so Stevie and I exchanged glances, preparing to present the next piece of evidence. During this time, Yosef and Cheryl continued their argument. When they started throwing things around the room, Stevie intervened, saying, all right, Dad and Cheryl, calm down. We're not done talking yet." At Stevie's words, their faces, which were red with anger, quickly turned pale, and they sat down, visibly deflated. Now we could finally move on to the next step. Our revenge drama was just beginning. Suppressing our agitated emotions, we prepared to further corner the two of them. "Sorry, but there's more evidence. Would you mind taking a look?" Saying this, I laid out the evidence received from the detective agency on the table. There were several photos capturing the two of them walking arm in arm through the night streets. Oh, by the way, I consulted with a lawyer, and with this much evidence, we can claim a significant amount in damages. Since both Cheryl and Yosef will have to pay, it's going to be quite a burden, especially for Cheryl. I guess she'll have to take out a loan or something, right? I asked with a smirk, and Cheryl, in a panic, stopped blaming Yosef and pleaded, "No, please. I can't pay damages. I'm just a housewife." It seemed that even Cheryl understood the difficulty of paying alimony as a housewife. Of course, I had no intention of lessening the punishment. We had agreed to take whatever we could. No matter how much you say it's impossible, we're going to take every penny we can. You knew the risk when you cheated, right? Didn't you imagine this could happen one day?
But that's not true. I'm not the one to blame. It was Yosef who came on to me. What are you talking about? You're the one who approached me. You said it'd be fine as long as we had a plan if we got caught. I trusted you, and this is what happens.
Both of their excuses were terrible. Yosef's was even worse. Thinking it's okay to cheat as long as you have a plan for when you get caught? No way. They should have been prepared to face the consequences together. Sorry, but no matter what you say, it's useless. I'm going to divorce Yosef.
Wait. I won't cheat again. I got carried away this time. I swear I'll never betray you again. Please, anything but divorce.
Once the trust is broken, it's zero. Don't you get that?
No way.
Hearing about the divorce, Yosef slumped down. It made sense, we were both in our 50s. Building a new family was practically impossible. Living alone requires a certain resolve. Yosef, having no siblings, might end up spending his life in complete solitude. But no matter the reason, I had no intention of forgiving Yosef. Realizing my determination, Yosef knelt down and begged, "I was wrong to cheat, I admit it. Please reconsider, just once. I love you, Kelly, I really do. Please give me one more chance." But I just smiled sweetly at him and said, "Sorry, but you need to give up. I can't be with you anymore. Persistent men are unattractive, you know?" After my words, Yosef fell silent. Stevie then said to Cheryl, "We're getting divorced too, so be prepared." Cheryl cried out, "Wait.
What about the child? She needs both her parents. Please, for her sake and mine, don't get divorced. Take care of someone else's child?"
Stevie asked, and Cheryl fell silent, unable to respond. To Stevie, the child Cheryl had given birth to was not his own, but the child of a man who would soon no longer be his father. For Stevie, spending his life raising such a child would be an unbearable burden. Both Cheryl and Yosef seemed devastated by the prospect of their futures, remained silent. Seeing this, Stevie and I sighed in relief. For a long time, we had been betrayed. Perhaps, without knowing any of this, I would have continued my relationship with Yosef, and Stevie would have raised a child that wasn't his, leading a miserable life. Though the child was innocent, that wasn't the life we wanted. Our lives are our own. Being conveniently manipulated by Cheryl and Yosef was unacceptable. Living life for oneself, seizing it with one's own hands, that's what life is all about. Today, we won back our lives. After that, my husband and I proceeded with the divorce procedures. Despite the discussions coming to a round conclusion, as expected, Yosef stubbornly resisted, saying he didn't want a divorce, making things quite difficult. However, by taking the matter to court and using the photos from the detective agency as evidence, Yosef finally admitted defeat, and the divorce was finalized. The affair became known at his company, and Yosef was laid off. He now lives in a shabby apartment, somehow managing to pay the alimony. As for my son and his wife, their divorce was also finalized. Unlike Yosef, Cheryl didn't resist much. Probably it's because she thought she had options being younger. After the divorce, Cheryl returned to her parents' home, hoping they would cover the alimony. However, upon learning the truth, her parents were furious and turned her away. Left with no support from her parents, Cheryl is somehow managing to repay the alimony by borrowing money from less than ideal sources. The baby is being raised by Cheryl's parents. Despite the hardships, things finally settled down, allowing us to take a breath. Honestly, what Yosef and Cheryl did was quite shocking from our point of view. But now, we're living life looking forward. Stevie and I, having gone through so much, will continue to stay in touch. Our connection with Sarah, who helped us at that time, has remained strong.
Stevie, in particular, is grateful to Sarah and has been spending more time with her since then. As a mother, I want to do my best to support Stevie.